let's kick off with that exciting stuff you were talking about before.
Yeah, well, I think that in the last, I don't know, maybe year or so, we've been getting a lot of requests for technology that can prevent card cloning, access tag cloning. And we heard about 5 years ago, maybe one or two guys bringing in a cloner, and they would take an old technology tag, like an old 125 tag, which I don't know, Simon, we're still in about 80% of buildings.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of buildings that still run that. Legacy TCOM sites, original concept sort of stuff.
And the 125, is that 125 bit or whatever it is, eh?
Yeah,
What's
125 kilohertz, like
kilohertz?
the frequency that tag operates on.
Yeah.
And it's just a real low-level encryption, or almost no encryption on it.
Was
basically.
it the state of the art at the time though? Like it was,
yeah, when it was released, like
yeah.
it was the bee's knees. But now you can buy a cloner off AliExpress, and you can sort of bring it in and copy it yourself if you really want to. You can buy the same format tags as well.
Yeah.
And the scary part about that is it clones the details on that tag. So if you're, as a building manager, programming in your users and your apartments, and Jane Davies or whatever in apartment 3A has this tag, if she loses that tag and someone clones it, it's an exact replica of her details. So if something happens in that building, and you go back through the event log, you look in and you're like, oh no,
it's all legit.
This is all guaranteed users, until you go back through and you match it up with your camera system, that you're like, hang on, that's not actually that person that we associate that tag to.
So it's actually a 100% copy of a tag, like the information, like there's no sort of other weird information in there that signals that it's a clone. It's 100% bloody.
Yeah, it's exact details.
Fuck, mate, that's scary. Except what you were saying before about the fact that it's possibly a different colour. That tag?
some of the ones we've seen around have been different colours.
Yellow.
But it doesn't mean yellow. I think we've seen some blue ones.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean to say that you can't get black ones or white ones.
True.
It's highly possible that it is around.
Yeah.
But it's just it's another thing you got to be a bit more aware about, especially from a building manager's point of view, because it's not people necessarily out to cause trouble. It's just people trying to save $1.
Yeah. And we were saying before about how much it costs to replace a swipe tag versus how much they can be cloned for.
Yeah.
That's got to be a consideration, because there's probably a certain type of individual that's doing this cloning. Like they're not necessarily going to be everybody, but it might be someone who's a bit short on cash. Or,
a bit short on cash. Students.
Yeah.
Students are always struggling.
Yeah.
And it's more where you've got, I would say, maybe high density housing. That would probably be
like 10 in an apartment, and they got 2 tags provided, but we got 10 people that need to get in and out. So they'll just go and get 8 cloned, and then that's it. But it is, I think that technology's been around for maybe 20 years, maybe even longer, maybe 25 years.
Yeah.
But the system works really well. The readers are still, you can still buy the readers, the card readers that read the tag. You can still buy the tags. They're relatively cheap in comparison to high encryption tags. So people, if it's working and they don't know that this is going on in the background, they're going to carry on with their old system. So generally when we look at upgrading a building, if their system is old enough and it fails, well, we go in with the option of replacing their old legacy readers with a multi-format reader, which can still read their old cards, but can also read a higher encryption card, and then we start phasing out the old cards. And I think Simon knows more about the seek and destroy format than I do.
Yeah, there's a particular brand that's got a quite neat function you can activate on their readers.
Yeah.
That if it detects a clone card, it'll actually burn the chip out inside it.
Oh, nice.
It's quite a cool feature.
How does that work?
To be honest, I'm not actually 100% sure.
Who knows, man? But it's magic.
It's actually got a way of terminating that card.
Yeah.
And stops it from being used again.
Yeah.
So we've used that as quite a good pitch to people to sort of be like, hey, look, when you are going through that upgrade, let's have a think about for the next 20 years. Where do you want to go? How do you want to do it? And let's try and phase you over to a new level of encryption. We were looking at MyFair DesFi EV2 Now
That's a card format.
I was going to say, like, I did not
Yeah, I know,
understand
right?
that thing you said then.
that was like the highest encryption you could get relatively easily, and then now I think they're on to EV3, and there's all sorts of different encryption you can get depending on the level of requirement. But those are sort of the most common non-clonable ones that you would go for.
That machine, that cloner that you were talking about before, is that a readily available thing, or do you guys have them at your office? Or
we've looked into getting them a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's not something we have done, but we have had customers approach us with them.
Yeah.
And they've bought them from AliExpress.
Bloody hell. Okay.
In saying that, we've had customers approach us with them, and they haven't actually worked when they've tried to show them to us.
Right.
But
So that's definitely from AliExpress then.
Yeah, exactly. But there's ones you can get. Like there's quite a popular one at the moment. It's called a Flipper Zero. It's about $600 to buy, but they can pretty much clone any non-secure tag. There's a few that it can't do, like the higher encryption ones, but it'll also enable you to sort of crack into Wi-Fi units and all that sort of stuff as well. That one I've been trying to get my hands on, but it's a little bit hard to get.
So what's the solution? Because that sounds like it's quite alarming from a building management and security point of view. Like, is there any solution to it, do you think? Or?
Not really. Well, the solution is as a migration to a more secure format, and it's an easy enough thing to do. Like Jason was touching on, is that you can have all your existing system in place, but you just swap out the format reader you're using. You go from an older 125 to a multi-format. And that means when a tenant comes and says, I need a new tag, we just order the more secure format. No one loses their tags on site, so they can carry on using them. It's a really cost-effective way of migrating as well. You're just going through and replacing the readers rather than having to replace, 2, 3, 400 tags, which can be quite a costly exercise to the BC. So that helps with the migration, that it kind of puts the cost almost back on the owners and tenants when they're losing those tags, as they would anyway. With the BC just wearing the migration cost of the readers.
So when, say, a building is going through an upgrade, like we started to talk about before, is that cloning thing, are you able to sort of phase that out, or can that be accounted for with a new system, or will a card still being cloned?
This is an old reader.
Yeah.
So that's an old 125 Cardax reader.
Yep.
I don't know how long ago do you think this was in circulation?
Oh, shoot.
They're still in circulation
They're
now.
still-
They don't make them,
They don't
but
make them
there's
anymore, but
still plenty of
there's
those
thousands
floating
out there, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at that, and then you look at, say that.
Yep.
So side by side, not a hell of a lot of difference.
Yeah.
One's black, one's grey. This is an old format, and that is a brand new format.
Right.
So all we would do is take that one off, put that one on, because this is what reads the card. The data that comes out of here is pretty much the same throughout. But this is this gives the handshake to the card. So you present your card to that on the higher format. This will recognize the card, and the card will recognize the reader. And that, I'm pretty sure that's more or
that's
less
still
how it
long and short.
works.
The only slight downside to the migration is the read time and range is a little bit less. So
Takes a bit longer
the
to read.
125s, you can
Right.
basically just throw your card at it, and
Okay.
it will unlock a door.
Yeah.
The more secure formats, because the way it works, it's a two-way communication. So the reader actually powers up the chip and the tag, and it talks back. And with that communication through, that's what gives you the handshake to say, yeah, this is who it is.
Because there's lots of different types of swipe tags out there. Remember the old school ones with a white card? They're about the size of a credit card.
Still
out
get them,
there.
yeah.
And then you got the grey sort of teardrop ones and the round blue ones and all this
Yep.
sort of thing. Like, do they all work on the same sort of premise, or are they all slightly different with their technology? Or?
Depending on the manufacturer, they've all got their little quirks around their own encryptions. So like Gallagher will have their own, ICT will have their own, HID will have their own different forms
This is a
of format.
TCOM.
TCOM has their own.
TCOM old smart reader. That's got its own format. So you can only use...
Which is still a proprietary used format now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you get
for
TCOM
TCOM.
smart cards will work on this. So lots of different readers, but if you look at the cards, they all pretty much look the same.
Yeah.
So you don't really know what kind of tech you're getting.
Yeah.
You also look at this compared to the other readers, and you don't know what tech you're really getting. So you've got to rely on your security guy, your security, and also do a bit of homework as well.
Yeah.
Have a look into the different types of cards and technology and security out there.
So what actually is it inside the car? Is it like a magnet, or is it a little chip, or what is the actual thing inside that talks to the reader? What is it?
It's an induction.
Yeah.
So in the card, there's a tiny cable that goes around,
Like an antenna.
like a little antenna, and that provides a little induction, and then that's what talks to the reader. And they've been around for ages. I mean, before that, it was the swipe,
Yes.
which had little sectors on the mag stripe.
CSN, I think it's called.
Swipe that down, and then it sort of picks it up as it goes through. They got phased out, and then the cards came in. The antenna is quite big in the cards, and now you get like the epoxy tags. Like the epoxy tag is a solid. It's just a solid piece of plastic. It looks like plastic.
Yeah,
it's just a piece of epoxy, and it's sort of built into there.
It's molded into it.
Yeah. So it's the technology is changing all the time, but as an end user or building manager, there's not much difference when you're looking at an old epoxy tag or new epoxy tag and an old teardrop tag. It's not a hell of a lot of difference you're looking at.
But even in saying that, you're not necessarily looking at, when we're talking new technology, is that you're also not sticking with just tags.
Yeah.
Like, you can get Bluetooth and mobile credentials now that you don't even need a tag. It can be on your phone. You badge your phone on the reader, and away you go.
So then, yeah, because the RFID thing, or near field communication, or whatever it's called.
NFC, yeah.
So yeah, can you actually take your phone to that cloner thing, and they'll
Probably not. I don't think.
hope
So.
not.
I don't think you could do that. No, no. That's a totally different
It's-
type of tech. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't come across that.
thank God for that.
But it's the mobile credentials are the more secure way these guys are pushing it from a supplier's point of view now. So I would say their encryption technology would be pretty up there to prevent that from happening. Because you've got two different ways you can talk to the reader, which is either through Bluetooth or through NFC. And both have slightly different variations on what they can do. But again, a lot of things are going that way now. But we've also got customers that run wristbands. They use that to unlock their door because they're in a high emergency situation. They want to get out. They just badge that on the door, and away they go. So there's a lot of different ways when you're talking card technology that it doesn't necessarily physically have to be a card.
Yeah, that's happening with like FPOS and all that sort of technology too. Over in Aussie, they have like rings. They'll sell like a epoxy ring that you just hold over the machine, and it's like a piece of. Still, you can tell it's not jewelry, but it's easy to wear.
Yeah.
It's that whole wearable tech thing that's coming in.
Well, it's like you're not going to lose you don't really lose your phone.
Yeah.
So it's
I know a few people that do quite often actually. Yeah. But it's I guess it's advancement, and like you're saying before about that technology that's evolving. Like, is there anything sort of happening even beyond, the state of the art stuff at the moment that is gonna that is sort of next level shit that you guys know about? Like, is AI starting to become a thing? Because we're all over that at the moment in various parts of work and stuff, and fuck, it's amazing what the old AI can do.
Yeah.
AI gets pitched to us a lot by suppliers.
Yeah.
For various different things.
Yeah.
The biggest requirement around it is the legislation, really. So like when you're talking AI, you're talking using cameras to do different bits, whether it's facial rec, fingerprint, different aspects of that, but it's all how it's legislated and how you can incorporate that into where it's going. The supermarkets have trialled facial rec and they got thrown under the bus for using it. But it's like, well, again, it's private property. So how do you distinguish that? It's still a real grey area at the moment, but there's tech out there that, you can pick people out of a crowd wearing a blue shirt and a grey hat. And it's not expensive tech either.
I don't know if you've seen the new Mission Impossible movie.
Of course I have, mate.
That's good, eh? When the thing is like changing the guy's face in real time through the CCTV cameras and stuff.
Ghosting,
like,
yeah.
Ghosting.
Right,
I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think like when the first Mission Impossible came out, and I was in security back then, right? And that was what 96 or 97 it came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not possible. A lot of the stuff that you see on TV is not possible.
Yeah.
So even with facial rec, there's limitations to it.
Yeah.
License plate recognition, there's limitations, and a lot of cameras, especially the camera side of things, it says AI, but it's not AI. It's machine learning. It's deep learning inside the chip, inside the camera, and it's always getting better. But I think there's, it does have its limitations, both legally and effectively for a customer. And with an AI or a machine learning or something, that's a constant. So we call that like a living machine. So we put cameras in, and we put 16 cameras in a building. The camera is facing one thing, and that's what it's looking at. It's not very smart. It's up to the user to pull what they need from that system to sort of know when it happens, so that they can go in and find that footage. And I think with AI, when you step it up and you go to the next level, you need to have constant work on that camera, constant work on maintaining it. You don't just put it in and leave it. It takes a lot of maintenance. And I think a lot of people that put in, say, a license plate recognition camera in a shopping center, they think their camera's going to go up and it's going to do its job and that's how it's going to work for years. That's not right. It needs constant love and attention. So that's why we call it's a living camera when it goes in.
Is that from a actual physically maintaining the thing, or is that just from a point of view that for the AI to learn or to work, it's got to have stuff happening in the camera? Like, you can't just have it looking at a wall. It's not going to learn shit looking at a wall.
That's
but
right.
if you had it on a door where there's heaps of people going through, would it learn that way, or is that totally different?
It does. It can learn like that. But if the camera lens gets a bit dirty, right, you got to change it. If you got a camera outside and you put it in winter, and during summer the sun comes up at a different angle and it's hitting that, and it's causing a glare, you got to change it. You got to keep on altering it and to find its best possible location and field of view and height and angles and all these sorts of things. And I think that even with a normal camera, we'll put a camera up in a town center, say, for instance, and it's not something that can just be left like that. It needs to be serviced. It needs to be maintained all the time. It's outside. It's getting water on it. It's getting dust on it. It's the bolts are rusting. The wireless connections are moving in the wind. That need to be, So with AI, with cameras, with access control doors, that service and maintenance portion is super important.
Yeah. What do you think about the whole issue around some of those cameras that came out of China? And I mean, it blew up last year because the council figured they'd bought a whole lot of them. Is there a subject to talk about?
Here we go.
It's a real interesting topic, eh?
Yeah.
It's so I know the particular brand you're talking about. There's about 2 or 3 of them that sort of got flagged quite badly by the US government. Those cameras are really good for what they do. They're cheap, they're cost effective, and they did have a bad batch that came out a fair few years ago that had a backdoor way into it. They patched it, they fixed it.
If they're installed properly,
a lot of
they're
it
fine.
comes down to how it's installed. You know, it's the same with anything. If you're going to go in and put your own router in at home, and you're going to leave a default password and username, most people can get into that. It's the same with your camera system or your security system. If you're leaving everything set up as default, I think the biggest problem with those particular brands is they provide a lot of plug and play systems. So it doesn't take a lot of technical nous to put it together and get it up and running. But people forget the security side of it, where you've got to secure your own product. So I particularly don't have a problem with those cameras. Generally, once we explain that to the customers that have had those problems, they're fine with it. It's about how you set it up. If it's installed properly, you're not leaving default settings, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, because that blew up at a particular building where we were having an upgrade last year, and that brand of camera was, what they were getting. And so I don't know if it was a massive overreaction or what, but they ended up going for a different type of camera that appeared to be more secure. But just the fact that media storm around that whole issue just caused everyone to panic. It's like, oh shit, they'll start watching me when I'm walking down the hallway, and it's like, I'm sure they got better shit to look at than that.
It is. It's like, they do have better stuff to do than watch you looking down the hallway if they can get out there. But if you're building a system that isn't on the internet, there's no way for it to actually get
If it's a
back
closed
up and talk to
network,
it. And it's like Auckland Transport put a lot of those cameras in, and there's a lot of them floating around. You're talking a couple of thousand of them. As much as I'm not the biggest fans of Auckland Transport, they would have had their own procurement process. They would have done their due diligence. Their IT guys would have been all over it. We deal with a lot of people that work in IT that have the same opinion as what we say. It's a cheap, cost-effective camera, and it does the job for what you need it to do. And if you're that concerned about it, you're going to pay a bit more for what you need to not have that name in your building.
Do you guys ever get asked by clients who have CCT systems in their building, and they've been approached by, say, the police or local authorities for their system to join the police's system or the local authorities' system and be part of that system? Do you ever get approached to, hey, can you just come and connect this up or hook this up?
Yep. So there's a crowd we work with that do it.
Yep.
They reach out and sort of see where different cameras may be of use. It's quite popular in town centres.
Public spaces.
Yeah. My understanding of how it works, I could be wrong, is it allows the police to have access to the system so they can see things in real time. They don't have access to any playback footage. So if they need to get that footage off, they're still going to have to come to site and request that footage. Yeah. But it's about being able to assist the police officers out in the field. So if they're guiding, a car through a chase and where they're going, they can see Auckland Transport, they can see the motorway cameras and deal with the various people. It's when they get out of those certain areas that it's like, okay, we know we've got cameras here, and we can reference that. And then they work together in that way. I think it's a good thing. Like if it means we can get ram raiders out quicker and that sort of stuff, then hey, I'm all for it. I've got no problems with it.
Yeah, you can understand the logic behind it. It's that almost like a shared resource, even if it is a private system. They might have cameras that are looking at public space, so therefore.
And that's the thing is that they can only be giving access to what you give them to. So if you're in an apartment building that you've got cameras throughout the building, but you've only got 5 cameras outside, and say you're in a busy place like Hobson Street, Queen Street, and they sort of want those cameras, you can give them access to just those 5, and they're generally very happy with that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, from a building owner's perspective, having maybe 1 or 2 of your external cameras into the police's network, it can only be safer for you. But it's like you don't get they don't give you a lot back for it. So they don't charge you for the connection, but you don't get a lot of feedback back from it. They're not going to come and tell you, hey, your camera was useful in a ram raid or something like that. Not at this stage, but it is. Most of ours are with our town centres, our public spaces cameras. We've just finished up a build now at Avondale, and they're on that network. So the police can pop in. Maybe the town centre next to them has had a problem. They're on those cameras. They jump into the AT cameras, and then they can jump onto those cameras there. And it's really effective.
Yeah, it's cool. So that's another thing we're going to have a chat about was like upgrades. Because I guess at some stage in a building's life, it's going to need a new system of some description, and usually the ones that we get, most often are your intercom, your CCTV, your access control. And so that's all part of what you guys do. You see a lot of buildings again, like the ones that were built in the early 2000s, I guess, and they're coming up nearly 20 years old now. And some of them have still got that same bloody system, the old TCOM, whatever it is, still banging away there. Yeah. So when you guys are doing quotes or whatever for upgrades, are you seeing? Is it? Do people actually know what to ask for, or are they relying on you guys to be able to say, "Here's the latest and greatest"? Or how do they actually approach you guys to get these quotes underway?
I think it's a bit of both.
These days, it's a bit of both.
If we're dealing with the likes of you guys, your building managers deal with multiple buildings. They generally have an idea of what they like to use. So we'll have a chat with them about it. They may say, "Oh, we like this one," and we're like, have you looked at this? And give them a couple of different options. We'll never go in and say you have to do this, because at the end of the day, we're not the ones using it. We know how to put it in. I can sell it to you, but you guys are the ones that have to use it. So we'll give you a couple of different options around it. The building manager may have a preference. Someone on the committee may have a preference. And that's when we'll sort of have those discussions with them, chat with them around what their requirements are from the system, and if they need any particular technologies around it. Do you need any integrations? Do you need anything fancy out of it? If not, we can go with something quite straightforward, or we can look at something a bit more enterprise.
So after COVID, I guess that's the latest sort of line in the sand. Were people coming to you asking for more cameras, or were they asking for a better quality of definition, or is there like a trend of what people are concerned about that they're coming to you guys wanting to have those problems solved?
Not
Not really?
in particular with COVID, to be honest. I think if anything, maybe a little bit of a quiet down on cameras because people are like, well, if they've got a face mask on, I'm not really going to see who they are.
Sure.
We'll get an idea of what they're wearing.
Yeah.
But I think, maybe access control a little bit more to prevent people from going from different areas they shouldn't really be going to, I suppose.
I guess what I should have said is, the resulting sort of crime wave that we've had after lockdowns and all that sort of shit. Is there people that are they asking for beefier security or more of this or more of that? Or
there's certainly been an increase in people's requirements around it, and I think we've all sort of seen that over the last 12 to 18 months, just looking at things like the RAM rating. Luckily, we haven't really been too affected with many clients that have
our
been
market's a bit different. So, our market is a little bit different when it comes to that sort of perimeter security. I think the customers that I would have thought that had enough security during COVID, before COVID. You got a building with 16 cameras. I would have thought that would be enough for them.
Yeah.
Then you'd be quite surprised that they're coming in saying, I think we need another 8 cameras, or we want some more coverage, or we want longer storage. So I think like that sort of stuff, definitely a little bit of an increase. But now with the recession as well, it's also like tightening up the purse strings,
I think remote access was a big thing.
Remote access was a
that
big
people
thing,
pushed.
yeah.
That's always a big one, eh? Like that became really popular. It was actually you guys who really turned us on to that. Was that that whole cloud-based thing, and man, that made life a lot easier. If you have to search through some footage, you don't actually necessarily have to go to the building to do it, and you could do it from another laptop or at home or wherever you are. So that was a bloody great idea. What's the name of that concept again? It's not the VSAS.
Oh yeah, VSAS.
Yeah.
It's the VSAS,
Yeah,
CVMS. So
yeah.
that's, well, I think most of your buildings that we look after are all on the same platform. So if you lose a building manager on holiday or something like that, we can give access to another building manager who knows the same system. All it is a different building, and we can just give them immediate access to that on the same platform. So I think for that, like building managers really love that because it's the same thing on different buildings. And I think what Simon was saying with upgrades as well is really important. When the building manager has a preference for their own product that they like to use, I mean, there's only really 4 big platforms in New Zealand for access control for big apartment blocks or commercial spaces. And even though a building manager may not be there for the entirety of the building, it's when it comes to the changeover, the building manager needs to really be invested in that with us because it's a joint effort. So if they work on a Gallagher or they work on Protege or they work on Integrity and that's their preferred platform, then that's something that we'll definitely throw into the mix. But like Simon also said, you may have somebody on the committee who at their office they use a different product and then they want to throw that into the mix. So we sort of put it all together and then taking into account the age of the car technology that we were talking about earlier, any integrations, lift access control, auto doors that are integrated into the system, and then we sort of design a package that will work for that. And a lot of the times when it's an old building, 20 years old, we don't have to go in one hit and go and rip out everything and replace everything. There's a lot of options out there now. So we can take out an old control unit and we can replace that. So for instance, we can replace something like that, which is your old PCB. This is your old 20-year-old PCB. I think that
That one's probably got a date on it somewhere.
This actually is a TCOM Challenger. And we replace that with something a little bit more modern, something that
There
looks...
you go, 2008.
Shit. So in that amount of time, they've become that much smaller.
Yeah, so we replace something like that with something like that.
Can you just hold those two up next to each other? Because that's a hell of a comparison there, eh?
Yeah, and they pretty much do the same thing.
And when you're talking, space in a comms room,
Yeah.
where, space is a premium in most buildings, is to be able to go in and cut, everything from say 5 cabinets down into 2 or 3. It just creates more space for people to be able to work in that same area. And it's also like energy efficiency. There's so many different aspects that come into it. So it's amazing how far even in my short time of being in the industry, technology's changed.
Yeah.
And in my long time in the industry, says a lot.
We've seen that with like not only this sort of tech, but also with like HVAC, like cooling towers. And stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
We're having some cooling towers replaced at a building at the moment, and I shit you not, like one of them is probably like half the size of this our office here.
Yeah.
Huge bloody thing. And now the ones that are going in are literally a quarter of the size of this room.
Yeah.
More output. So things are just becoming smaller, more efficient.
Yeah, more expensive.
It's
Yeah.
also
That's exactly it. Yeah.
It's also product availability.
Mm.
That's a big thing when it comes to selecting what product you're going to use. Is that you can pick something that someone may be importing themselves, or you pick something that's locally distributed or locally manufactured. Hey, that's even better. We all like to buy stuff Kiwi made.
How much of the stuff is actually made in New Zealand? Is there much of it that's actually made?
So
or is
Gallagher's
it
New Zealand made, and so is Protege.
So they actually make it down in Hamilton then?
Yep.
Yeah, they do.
Yep. And
That's
Protege's
pretty
made up in
Protege's in
Albany.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alright.
Yeah, the Protege's ICT's just done a big upgrade on their warehouse up there.
Yep.
So I can't remember how many off the top of my head they employ, but they've got quite a bit. And Gallagher's got a massive production facility down in Hamilton. Inner range gears from Aussie, but is distributed here locally and quite readily available. I think the only time we saw a bit of an influx was during COVID.
Yeah.
And then T-Com, I don't know where T-Com's made.
Yeah.
There is
Nowhere.
one supplier
Nowhere.
here, but
I mean,
Is it the?
well, T-Com was huge back in the day.
Yeah.
In the 90s, T-Com was huge.
it's still quite
Yeah.
popular in Aussie.
Oh.
It's like the old Nokia or the Blueberry,
Yeah.
BlackBerry. Yeah.
And I mean, just a little T-Com, single door reader from way back.
Mm-hmm.
I think it still look like it. I don't know if
Still
They've
exactly
moved
the
on.
same.
but with T-Com, Hill's pulled out, so T-Com is now supplied by a different distributor.
Yep.
So yeah, it swings in roundabouts.
Yeah.
But those are really the four big boys in New Zealand when it comes to access control. And pretty much, if you went into any building, you'd be 95% sure to find one of those products in New Zealand. So when it comes to like access control, I think your choice is quite limited, and the products more or less do the same thing. So then you're talking like personal preference. A lot of it is personal preference. Like we prefer the New Zealand stuff because we're here, and if we need support, we've got it. The guys here give really good support. But when you're talking something like intercoms, intercoms can be more expensive than your access control. You could have a big building with 5 access control doors, right? So you're gonna pay 20 grand for that. And then in that building you have 300 apartments. You're paying 200 grand for your intercom system. And you get somebody comes in, they sell it to you, it looks fantastic, they can put it in. And a year later, they've gone out of business.
Yep.
And you're stuck with this intercom, and you call someone like me up, and you're like, Jason, I need you to fix this handset. So I come in and I'm like, I never seen this intercom before in my life. I don't know where this intercom comes from. So then I Google, like the same as you, I'm going to Google, mate, I'm going to Google this intercom name. I'll be like, wow, okay, that's Argentinian. So I don't know. I don't know how I got here, but this is the only one in the country. And I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, I need to rip this intercom out. Right? And then
You just spent 200.
You've just spent 200 grand and we cannot work on it. We'll give it our best, we'll give it our best to keep it going. But if it's a new build, that's on the architects and the designers of the building. If it's an upgrade and we're walking into something that's just been upgraded, well, that's on the committee that selected that person to do that, put that product in. I mean, we're working through about 4 of these buildings at the moment, where we only use stuff that we can get here. So we use a lot of A-phone equipment for our intercoms. We had, when was it, on Monday or Tuesday? Monday, we had the product developer from Japan sitting in our office with us.
Nice.
Right? So he came over, he's meeting everybody who move his equipment.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what we want to see as a supplier and installer. We want to see that sort of buy-in from the manufacturer. The support that's there. And we'll push that product. because it's safe for us and it's safe for you guys. And I know that in 5 years, when the product has been superseded by something new, that I'm going to be able to get that. It's going to fit together. It's going to work, and it's going to be functional.
It's not only that. It's also talking about upgrades as a whole. Is that if for whatever reason the relationship falls down between integrator and customer, is you want something that somebody else can seamlessly come in and take over the building.
Yeah.
So that's where we're quite careful with the products we use. Is that anyone that's half decent can come and look after that system, and it's not going to be a problem. We've seen it a few times where guys have been importing their own product. We've had to go in and.
I was actually going to ask you guys about it if you've ever considered doing that. We'll talk about that soon.
We've come across it a few times, and it's not good for anyone. It just causes problems.
It's good for the guy that imports it because he's making a lot of money on it, but it's it can get quite tricky, and that's worth. We do a job for a guy, and he wants us to install 32 cameras in a building, and I'm like, okay, what do you want? He's like, no, I've got all of the stuff already. I got my own stuff. So we go out, we have a look at it, and I'm like, I cannot install this. It's a brand that you can buy here, but it's been brought in through a parallel method, and we can't work on it because we can't get support on it. So I turn it down. I had another one with an automatic door. He's brought his own automatic door in from China, and he wants us to put it in. I'm like, I can't do it. There's 5 automatic doors that we can buy here that are fantastic, that are supported, that are distributed here, that are serviced here. I've never seen this product before, so I can't put it in.
So if you're thinking about doing an upgrade and you really want to bring your own gear in, would you not come and speak to you guys first to say, can I bring this gear in? Or would you just straight away say, no, don't. Use the stuff that we
Well, the biggest problem you're going to have is if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because if you go ahead with this install and you find someone to put it in and they go and whack this product in, if there's a faulty card reader or a faulty camera, the integrator's going to go, well, I didn't supply it. That's you.
Yeah,
and you've got to go and chase up with whatever manufacturer, wherever you got it from, and try and get a warranty replacement on that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
There's no agent there to be that
There's
person
no agent
who's got the support and all that.
No.
Okay, you're right.
And it's also like, and that sort of touches on the base of bringing in your own product as well. Is it's like most of these guys that would bring it in won't hold that stock. They'll get it as needed because it's generally quite a big outlay if you're going to hold that stock. So you'd be stuck in the same problem. So that's where we say you've got to be very careful with the product you select to go in, and that's for access control, cameras, intercoms, actually for anything you're going to do, in especially in an apartment building where there's so many different services. Is you want continuity in that building, and that's from a management point of view. So you guys need to be able to use it. A technical point of view, that the guys who are working on it need to be able to work on it, and it just makes everybody's life easier.
When you're looking at these upgrades, because say if you take a building, it's got a 20-year-old intercom system, they'll probably have a Cat 5 sort of cable in there, or
Depends on the system.
Probably not.
No, okay.
Old bus, old LAN.
Yeah. And so then you go, okay, do we just change the handsets over in the thing at the front, or do we have to rewire the whole thing? What? You must come across all the different scenarios where you go, you can do the handset and you can just do that, or you might have to do the whole thing.
We're actually going through this right now. I've been working with a committee for a year. Multi-building tenancy. Not huge building, so about 15, 16 apartments per building. And they had an old audio Farfisa intercom. And
Farfisa,
Italian.
And they wanted to upgrade to audio and video. We said, that's cool. I said, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come through and we're going to test all the cabling. I said, because your building's old. We don't know. This is the first time we've been into this building. We don't know the layout. We need to come and work out how everything works. So they paid us to come through, check the whole entire building, and we knew exactly how the cabling runs. And we chatted with our supplier and distributor. And they're like, nah, it's not going to work. You can do audio, no problem. But if they want video, we're going to look at an alternative. And so then we're looking down the avenues of, a video IP intercom that talks just to your mobile. Or a tablet if you've got that in your unit. Or if they want just audio, then we go GSM, or they've got the handset option. So it starts to open up a whole can of worms, but it's like we've done our piece to say, look, we've checked the cabling, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And that's due to the layout of the cabling, but the type of cabling that's in place. Subsequently, someone's come in and said, yeah, we can do it.
Oh. But can they really? Or are they just bullshitting to get the business?
I don't know. The brand they're proposing, we don't use, never heard of.
Aussie brand.
Again,
Damn Aussies.
we tested the cabling. They tested one floor, so it may work, it may not. I don't know. So they're still debating through that at the moment. But that's one of those scenarios where it's like you can go either way with it.
And it's usually when someone says, "I can do that for cheaper."
Well, no, that's the thing is
they'll start to ring
that I don't think they are cheaper than us.
No.
And they're just their biggest thing is they want video. But they need to work out how they want to do it in different bits and pieces.
But it's a new tech with the phone. It's for a lot of people who've had a handset on their wall for 20 years in their apartment. All of a sudden, the handset's gone, and now they're using their phone. So we had a committee meeting with them. We're there for about an hour. Another committee meeting with them.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
That's short.
And just explaining the tech, how it all fits together, and that we've done this before, and that we've worked out. We had kinks in the first one we did, but the more you do, the better we get at our job. And I was just explaining this is how it fits together, and then you get somebody who would say, but the lady in 5E is 86 years old and she doesn't have a phone. So I'm like, well, there are some prerequisites. You must have a phone. Or we can put a tablet somewhere. But if she's 86, she's struggling to get up, to get to the wall where the thing's ringing for. It'll ring for a minute and then it'll turn off. So it's pretty hard to find exactly the right thing. But I think what we were trying to say was there's a lot of options now. Back 20 years ago, when we were putting Farfisa hardwired units into everywhere, if you wanted to change away from the Farfisa, you went to something else that had exactly the same format, hardwired from here to a module to this module. I mean, iPhone still does it as well. You got a hardwired modules everywhere. But there's a lot of other options. We put a lot of GSM in now. So basically, it's an intercom panel at the front of I think we're doing a couple of your buildings right now.
Good.
Intercom unit, beautiful stainless steel. It looks perfect. You got a little directory that you can scroll through or look at. You push the code in of who you want to call, what apartment number, and it goes straight from there straight to their mobile phone. If they don't answer, it'll step down to the next person's mobile phone. And then from their phone, wherever they are, if they want to let somebody into the front lobby, they can open them up, or their garage, or the vehicle gate, or whatever. That's actually been around for quite a while, but not using GSM technology, using landline phone technology. So you're actually the building was paying for a landline. Remember that, $60 a month for the landline. And then you'd be getting a call, and it's like, oh, well, we can't call mobiles from the landline, only your. So it's changing all the time. So we got SIM card technology, we've got IP intercoms, we've got mobile phones through gateway intercoms, and still the old traditional intercoms. So again, it's really important to choose. When your building is coming up for a big renewal, definitely go out and get your 3 quotes. Make sure they're apples for apples, and do as the person who's making that decision, do a little bit of research, or make sure you're choosing the companies that are good at what they do. That have been around for 15, 20 years, that have got guys that have been with them for as long, and but it's also very hard because you can have a guy who just started off his security company 3 months ago, but his website looks like it's been around for generations.
And on the other
sign writing in his car looks mint.
On the other hand of that, he could be very good at what he does. He may be a fantastic tech. You see it. You see it a lot. Guys like, I'm going to go contracting. I'm going to do my own thing.
Like, see you in 6 months.
And hey, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's making sure you've got people that can support it. And that's whether you've got a problem at 2 o'clock in the morning, or you just need someone to get there now.
And that's the big difference between like a lot of businesses, service-based businesses. You're a one-man band, or you're an established company with infrastructure behind you, like you guys are, like we are. people don't. Sometimes they don't see the value in that. They just see, I want to pay the cheapest price.
And there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
There's a cost to that, mate.
Absolutely, there is. Yeah.
It's such a hard thing. Like, some people get it, and you don't even need to explain it to them, and they understand that. But then you get some people that are just so dollar orientated that they don't see it, but eventually they come back around anyway.
Yeah,
we've seen it.
around.
We've seen it so many times where we'll get asked to price something. No, that's cool. You guys are too expensive. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, can you come in and fix this? They put it in.
Yeah, they put it in.
And a lot of times we turn around and we say no.
Yeah.
We're like, no, get them back in the dot.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to understand that if you want good service and you want quality work, it comes at a cost. And I'm pretty sure you would understand that.
Yeah,
that,
man, for sure.
The service level is so key these days. And we've tried really hard to build our business on that. Is that, if a customer's going to call, someone's going to answer the phone.
I think that's one of the most important things, is answering the phone.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like that somebody actually goes, yep, we're here, even if you could only get out there the next day or 2 days later. That somebody's taken your call, they've logged your job, you got an email to say that they got their job. You know. But then also, I think when you come to size, our options increase as well. I mean, our techs are really good. They've been with us for ages, and they get paid really well. And that's how you keep your retention. For us, that's how we keep our guys, because a lot of my guys know your size because they've been working there for 5, 6, 7 years. So that adds another level of value into it.
I was going to say before that you guys have been around for such a long time now. You must be doing upgrades on upgrades and potentially upgrades on upgrades on upgrades.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
That must be a cool feeling to get that. You see one of your systems and there you're like, oh, it is getting a bit old. Let's upgrade that, and then you get that work as well. That must be cool to see, because that means you're doing a good job.
That works well when sites have planned forecasting around it. A lot of, especially in the apartment industry, it's not a big thing where they do long-term forecasts, but it's not something that okay, and next year we're going to upgrade this because we've had it for 15 years. Generally, it's starting to fall apart. Let's look into it and move on that. But there are customers that do have forecast asset replacement, and that's fantastic because you do get to see the life cycle of that whole site. And it is a good feeling when you get to that it's like, okay, this has been in here and it's lasted this long. Now we're going through the next generation.
I put this in here 20 years ago, mate. yeah, that's exactly right. I remember doing this screw by screw.
But there's also certain things like, I remember doing Aura apartments in town.
Oh yeah, well.
So that the first upgrade we did there, me and Jay actually physically did it ourselves at 10 o'clock at night because it failed and they had to get it working. Oh,
it was an immediate repair. That's right.
Yeah,
it was a complete breakdown.
That was a fun time, but we've subsequently upgraded that again.
Yeah.
And it's good to see the life cycle of buildings like that.
And I bet it's that response time and that urgency to make things right that people go, well, why don't we just get them to do the upgrade? Because if they can give us good service in between times, it gives you a foot up.
I think that's one of the biggest problems with buildings that have got an old system in, and it's working. So don't touch it. Don't worry about it. And when it fails, it fails bad. Yep. And when it fails bad, it means that I can't go down the road to the shop and go buy something to put in there to make it work.
Yeah.
That means that you're in a position now where your commercial property has got no security at all. I'm now having to put guards on there for you, right, at $80 an hour.
24/7.
24/7 on 3 entrances, because now we need to rebuild the site from scratch. So, that asset maintenance and also getting advice from your security provider is really important. If I'm coming to you and I'm saying this site, it's touch and go, right? We need to look at something. If you're not going to act on that information, and that happens, it's going to cost you like 3 times as much as what a planned upgrade would cost.
How do you guys get around that? Because there's so many people out there that go, oh, you're just telling that us because we just you want to get
I
a
know,
sale out of
right?
us. And it's
I
like,
know,
well,
right?
actually, not
Well,
necessarily.
There's a lot of work that goes into doing an upgrade.
Yeah.
You've got to work with the management team, the building management team, to make sure it's done at a suitable time for everybody. If you've got lift control, you don't want to be doing it at peak lift traffic time. There's so many different factors that need to take into consideration. The size of the building. If you've got 3,000 access tags, you've got to migrate over. Depending what system you're going from, there's a lot of different ways you can migrate that information. Sometimes there is no other way other than to manually change that over, and that just takes time. So if we can do a quoted upgrade, and I say it to customers all the time, if they're like, oh yeah, our system's starting to fail, let's get it quoted. It's like, okay, cool, here's the quote, but if your system's failing, you really need to act on it.
Here's another quote.
Because if you call me and you say, oh, my system's bit the dust, and I've got to come in urgently to do it, I said, you're going to pay substantially more because it's a rush job. I've got to get more guys on there, and we have to basically throw our plan into action without being able to plan it. So it's just a go to get it sorted.
And sometimes fund it from their point of view because they weren't expecting their system to shit itself. This year it was supposed to clap out in 3 years' time. They're probably stretched as well, so they've got to dip into their bloody sinking fund or whatever they call it.
That's
these
right.
days. So I was just going to ask before about wireless technology, and because we come across it a lot, and by and large it seems to work pretty well, but I always get a bit nervous around buildings that have like massive concrete walls and pillars and stuff. Although those signals are they pretty good at getting through?
You're talking like wireless locks?
Wireless anything, like for the last comparison, we'll say wireless like intercoms.
No. No, they don't, mate.
Right, okay.
Concrete and steel
is
not the friend of any wireless equipment.
Good, I'm glad.
Wireless intercoms, wireless cameras, wireless remotes, it's a problem. Especially the steel.
Wireless locking solutions are becoming real popular.
Yep.
We've seen a big increase in it recently.
Yeah.
But there's different ways they can do that. So they can do that as like a data on card technology, where all the information's on the card, and they just have update readers around the place. And that's commonly used in an apartment situation, but mainly on apartment doors. So you'll have your base Protege, Gallagher, whatever system you have that runs the overall building, and they may have Salto locks on their apartment doors, they may have it on their locker doors, different things like that to just streamline access throughout the building. But it's a really cost-effective way of expanding on your access control solution.
How do you mean expanding?
So like a hardwired door where we've got to run cabling to it, physical locks and all that sort of stuff, costs a lot more. If we can go in and, for the lack of being able to simplify it more, replace your handles with a Salto offline wireless lock, it's a much you're paying substantially less to do that. And we see it a lot more where people are wanting that smart solution, especially in new builds for your apartments,
like service departments, I think, as well.
Things like that.
So hotels, service departments, backpackers, things like that, where you got say 200 doors, but you want to have access control on them. So I'm going to charge you $3,500 a door if I'm going to hardwire a lock into each door. With the Salto stuff, with the Leviton gear, handles go on. It's got a battery inside it. That's what keeps the door locked. Like if you go to a hotel, you badge it, and then that will talk to like a wireless node somewhere else in the building. That'll talk to another one and another one, so we can sort of daisy chain the whole wireless system together. It is very cost effective. Hotels have been using it for ages, but I think recently, for me anyway, that technology is come across to our industry, where the hotel industry was always very separate with those locks, but it's sort of moving to us. So we've had training now on the Salto gear, different types of wireless locks and how they fit together and how they integrate into, and they're integrating into all of the major panels now. So it's and maybe half the price of a hardwired lock.
Depending what you want to do with it. Like it does vary, but when you're looking at doing like large scale, it becomes a lot more cost effective, like substantially.
Then wireless, yes.
Yes. If you get past all that.
Yeah.
So what, like from say a wireless intercom, because I'd be wondering about, does the picture get through okay, or is it being interfered with on the way up by other electrical stuff?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Those are the sort of the common issues around wireless
Oh,
intercoms.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For your house, you got a intercom at your front door, at your gate or whatever, and that's talking to something in your house. Maybe you look at think about wireless for that.
There are some all right ones for like the domestic realm.
Yeah.
But in like a commercial, multi-residential situation, nah.
Yeah.
No, hardwired or GSM or networking or in the cloud.
Yeah.
Those,
It'll come down to like line of sight, Like if your equipment can see each other through a jib wall, I don't know, but if it can't see the other equipment through a concrete or steel or whatever, then it's like go for the
pretty
hard
much.
wire. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you can have like point to point. So you can have a wireless piece here talking to a wireless piece here, but it's line of sight. Then you can sort of bounce that along. It's like the internet. It's like the Wi-Fi providers in a lot of buildings. You got those horrible units stuck everywhere, mate. But they talk to each other line of sight. That's how it works.
Could they interfere with other signals? Yeah, they can.
They could,
yeah.
Especially our old cordless phones.
Well,
baby monitors.
That's when you get talking like frequencies and stuff like that can cause a problem. Microwaves, TV remotes, home routers, they all sort of operate on that 2.4 to 5 gigahertz range, whatever it's called.
Okay.
And they all interfere with each other.
Yeah. Are there any other like considerations that people should be aware of when they are doing an upgrade or wanting to do an upgrade? Like, there's obviously a process that should be gone through. They got to sort of plan. Like they're thinking about getting it done. They'll engage people like yourselves. You guys will give them advice. The things that they should big questions.
Talk with other people in your industry.
Yeah.
Like like security, building management. Like when you're talking decent size, there's not a lot of you guys around that are half decent, and you all sort of chat anyway. So you can bounce ideas off each other around product, providers, different integrators. What do you think of these people? What do you think of this product? What do you think of this product? And generally, if someone's had a bad experience with them, they'll tell you straight up.
What about from a say a consumer point of view though? So from a committee point of view, like when they're thinking, we need to upgrade the system, because I know some of them will just say, let's upgrade what's there. But some of them will say, actually, probably a good time to figure out what else we can plug into the system, or how else we can, modify it. Like, are these sort of things that you guys would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if we know the building and we've been there for a while, it's much easier for us. But we go into new buildings every single day, and because we've done so much of it, we got over 20 years in the industry. We generally know this type of building needs this type of security, this type of level, this kind of integration. I think a good way to do it for an end user, especially sort of more your commercial stuff, where you got one person going to operate it, ask us to demo it. We can show you how it looks in real life. Suppliers these days are and manufacturers like of the Gallagher and Protege equipment, they're not how they used to be. They'll actually come out. They will take the time now, and they'll come to a building, and they'll sit down with the committee, and they will actually show them their product in real time. So, and I think that a lot of people don't know that all of this is available. You can actually request a demo. I want to see what it looks like. Show me what a reader looks like, and we'll bring it in and show you what it looks like. Maybe take you to it. We did a town centre a few years back, and they wanted to see what we were proposing. So I took them to another one of our town centres and said, can I show them what you got? And they were more than happy to show. And we took them through the PTZs and how it works, and how to download footage. And that's how we made that. That's how we got that one across the line.
That's cool.
So I think if you're a committee or a building manager, and that your system is old, I would say anything sort of 10 years plus, you need to start considering an asset replacement. Start talking to people in your industry, talk to people like us. If you're a building manager, you also know if you're getting the piss taken out of you. That's your job too.
That's right.
And
the committee puts a lot of faith in you guys. Like you're their basic eyes and ears when it comes to a lot of these services. And they do take a lot of what you guys say on board.
That's because we just regurgitate what you guys tell us. So they put faith in us to do that. We also put faith in you guys to be able to give us the the info.
Yeah.
Then it's up to us to sell them on that concept. But then when they say, "Yep, let's take the next step," then get you guys in or however they want to do it.
Yeah, and the last thing that we want to do is sell rubbish, because that's just work for us.
Well, for us, it's not about going in and getting this one upgrade job and walking away. We want to look after that building for the next 10 years. There's maintenance, there's ongoing repairs and all that sort of stuff, plus future upgrades.
Yep.
For us, it's the longevity. It's not we're going to get in, do the upgrade, and walk away. There are a lot of companies out there that are like that, but it works better for us because we end up picking those buildings up.
A lot of buildings up. Yeah.
That term obsolescence. Don't ask me to spell it because I probably can't. But you guys must come across that a lot in the tech industry.
Yep.
You're seeing all these old systems becoming obsolete. No bloody parts for them anymore. No support for them anymore. Is that a big problem that you guys see?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Tech changes all the time.
Camera tech is the worst.
Yeah, camera tech
right.
is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
1-2 years, that particular model that you put in is obsolete.
That's obsolete.
Really?
Yeah. It'll probably last you 5-10 years if you look after it properly. But after 2 years, the tech that was built, I mean, I've gone through the whole thing, right? I've gone through from analog cameras, BNC connectors, black and white screens, video recorders to record your footage. 30 of them stacked up, that's your month's worth of footage. I've gone through that into the beginning of and that's long play, recorder machines, to like DVR style things with like capture cards, still analog, all analog, and then the slow progression to IP cameras with the first NVRs that came out, the first gen IP cameras, 1.3 megapixel, 1.2 megapixel, first gen, had no idea what they were doing, terrible. But back then it was still twice as good as an analog camera and 5 times the price. And I've seen it go from that to now 4K cameras that are cheaper than they've ever been in any time in the last 20 years. So, going through the whole range, it's been actually quite fun. It's just wondering where it's going now.
Well, you gotta sell that value, because 20 years in any industry is bloody impressive, and like you say, you've been through the gamut of like mechanical all the way through to digital.
Seen it all become obsolete.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all been, everything's become obsolete. The only thing that's current now is the stuff that's released between 2020 and now.
Yep.
That's it. Everything before that is obsolete, superseded, throwaway. It's crazy. The access control seems to last a lot longer out there. I mean, I've got sites that are 20 years old that are still running same lock, same reader, same card. But now when you're looking at a 20-year-old system, to now think about upgrading that to what we've got now, that's a really big jump for a customer. And if it's the same customer that's been working on this for 20 years to now have all these options, all this jargon that's out there, that's really tricky.
Yeah.
So you gotta they have to find a partner that works for them, who can explain it, who can simplify it, and who can just, and you can get them through the muddle of all the tech that's out there. And there's so much. Simon and I are going to ASIAL, the security conference in Sydney, maybe in August.
End of August.
And we'll be walking around there, I'm assuming, and I'm going to be going, what's that? What's this technology? There's going to be stuff that's new to us as well. But keeping relevant, keeping ahead of everything, that's our job in this industry. Otherwise, we will become dinosaurs quickly.
Yeah, that's right. I like what you said there. You mentioned the term partner. And I think that's really important, for people to view, companies like service companies like yourselves and us as partners. Like, we're not just in and out. Like, we want to develop the relationship, like you said before, Simon. We want to get that play the long game and say get their next bloody 10 upgrades if you're still around.
And there are other buildings.
It's about building that trust.
Yeah.
Like we've done with you guys, is build that trust up over the years that if you're going to give us a call and say, hey, can you come and help us out in this building, you're going to get good service. Yeah. And we're going to sort you guys out with what you need. But that's the key.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that's awesome, man. All right, sweet.
Cool.
Done and dusted.
Awesome.
Thank you, chaps.